You're going to love this. Trust me, what you're seeing now is my normal state. This is a Super Saiyan. This is what is known as a Super Saiyan that has ascended past a Super Saiyan. And this is to go even further beyond!
Hello there everybody, you're doing it. My name is Supersonic Blur and welcome to a slightly different video for today. Today we're going to be looking at theory crafting, but not in the sense of what's the most maximum efficiency we can get as a whole for a character. We're going to look at just one specific thing. How much can we pull out of one specific idea and boil it down into its most pure concentrated power. So for that, today we're going to be looking at the what I've called Stop Hitting Yourself build. This will be looking at reflecting as much damage back to the enemies as possible, and who better to look at for this build than Kuzenbo. Spike Shells already will reflect back 30% of any damage that he takes from the sources, so already we have a fairly nice-ish start to be able to do with this. It also lowers his cooldown, so you want to be taking more damage, but just how much damage can we reflect back? Well, first thing we need to do is look at other items which are going to reflect back damage. So we start with 30% with just the Spike Shell. Thorns will reflect back 40% damage. This is all with unmitigated damage from Thorns as well, so Thorns will do slightly more than the other items and things here. I just want to point that out now, but for the most part we'll just say that it's the flat 30 from Spike Shell and the flat 40 from Thorns. So with those two we have 70% reflect. We also have Hide in the Nemean Lion, which if we're going into basic attackers will reflect back another 25% damage. So already we're sat at a pretty nice, comfortable 95% damage, which if you have more health than the enemy, they will kill themselves before you die, which is good. Good for you. You win that trade, but we can do better than that. The first thing that we can add to this is going to be a Shamans Ring. Shamans Ring will increase the damage we hit on Spike Shells by 10%. So by reflecting back essentially 10 more percent, we're essentially reflecting back 33%. So now we're at 98%, which is getting close to that 100% mark. But we can do even better than that. By adding in a Rangda's Mask, not only are we going to increase the damage on Spike Shells by another 15%, but we're also taking more damage, meaning that Thorns will reflect back more, as will the Hide in the Nemean Lion. So, putting that into this thing, and we end up actually coming out at 128.688% damage being reflected. That means that even if they have a Devourer's Gauntlet, and they're life-stealing 24%, they are still taking more damage than you are, and through the healing, which is absolutely fantastic. But we can go
Even further beyond!
by adding in an upgraded Sunder. Enemies hit by this Sunder not only take 15% of their current HP as true damage, but they also then take 20% more damage from all sources. This means that we can multiply the Rangda's Mask bonus damage, the Shamans Ring bonus damage, the reflect damage on Thorns, the reflect damage on Spike Shell, and the reflect damage on Hide in the Nemean Lion, all in for a grand total of 154.5% reflect on basic attacks. That's pretty damn good, but fair enough. Let's say it's only on abilities. Oh, that's not so great because we lose that 20% or the 25% from the Hide of the Nemean Lion. That's true. We are only reflecting back 116 or 117%. So yeah, we can still reflect back a huge amount. So now that we have a rough idea on what items we want to use, now we just have to worry on how we're going to fit those into a build. So for this, I would recommend doing this in the jungle. The main reason for this is we can't really afford to do it in solo lane. We want our teleport, and since we need 2 active slots, we kind of need those 2 open already. Can't really afford to do this in the support role either, because Rangda's Mask means that we don't have the frontline potential coming out, and also as well, it's you'll get shouted at a lot because you're building a dumb build in the support role. So just save yourself there. Don't do it. So, for the jungle, it is for this then. We'll start off with the Assassin's Blessing, and I personally like the idea of starting with an Emerald Ring here. The reason for this gives us a little bit of movement speed, a little bit of power, which is all nice. From here on out, we're going to finish our boots. Either one of the two sets of boots usually works out well. In fact, there's actually 3 sets of boots you can go for. You can go for the Talaria boots if you want to be more mobile, making more ganks early. You've got cooldown boots so that you can be more impactful with your abilities coming up more often. And penetration if early you can get off to a good snowbally lead. From here on out, the next items are going to be looking at things like that Hide of the Urchin, that Hide of the Nemean Lion and the Void Stone. The reason we want these two is because there are big chunky penetration and also defensive items. Pick which one you need to fight into first. So if you're going into a more physical comp, pick up that Hide of the Nemean Lion. If you're going into more magical comp and you want to get that more penetration online, get that Void Stone. Either way, the third item will be whichever one of the two you didn't pick up. Then we can start looking at things like the Shaman's Ring and the Fighter's Mask. Personally, I like getting the Shaman's Ring first, just because that more movement speed, and also we can start getting that passive stacking. Then we can finish up picking up our Rangda's Mask. From here on out, our last item we can actually look at is going to be a Relic Dagger. The reason we want this Relic Dagger is because so much of our damage hinges on having Thorns and Sunder up. Getting that cooldown of 30% shaves off 25%, if not more, on those 2 relics. So because of that, getting this is really nice. It's also a little bit more health, it's also a bit more cooldown, and a bit of movement speed as well, which is nice. Which means that we can also swap out our boots for another defensive item. We could swap this out for a Hide of the Urchin. We could swap this out for a Spirit's Robe to stack more mitigation. You could stack it with an Oni Hunter's Garb to stack more mitigation as well to go with your passive. Either way, you can drop boots out for a defensive item that you want to look at here. And this will round out your build pretty nicely. If we go with a Hide of the Urchin here, you end up with, at full stacks, around 200 physical protection and about 160, 170 magical protection, which is pretty damn good. Not to mention as well a whopping 3,200 health and the 200 or so health shield as well, meaning that you have a 3,000 plus health shield of, or meat shield of time, where you can reflect back more damage. The more health you have to spend, the more you can reflect back to the enemies. So that pretty much sums up what I'm doing with this build. Now we're going to try and talk about the pros and cons of this. The cons we'll start off with here. This build is fantastic if the enemies hit you. If the enemies don't hit you, you're kind of just standing there. If you don't get the enemies to focus and pay attention to you, then they just don't have to do anything. Also as well, because so much of the damage is tied to your relics, if you miss your Sunder, you're not doing quite so hot in this. And if you end up with your spots where you just don't have your actives or cooldowns up, then you're kind of in an awkward spot as well. A lot of the deterrent factor in this build for Kuzenbo is just the fact that they take more damage if they hit you, so they won't want to hit you. This does also work out as a pro. If you can stand in front of the enemy hunter or the enemy mid laner and say, hey, you don't get to hit my teammates, you're going to hit me, and then you're going to question why you hit me, then that's fantastic. For 3 to 6 seconds, you can isolate out 1, maybe 2 members of the enemy team and make them pay for it at the same time. Hopefully then, your team should be able to win the rest of the fight or come finish up the kills that you've set up for them. Unfortunately though, the other big issue with this is you're trying to take a lot of damage, which does mean as well that if you're at half HP a lot of the time, just trying to reflect back more damage with your spike shells, then you're not going to get as effective use out of your Thorns or your Sunder. Good news though, is that if you do happen to throw your Sunder out and it hits, I don't know, say the front line, your team can still carry on using that Sunder because it's 20% increased damage from all sources. So you're effectively helping your team by picking up that Sunder. Bad news is you do have to invest that 500 gold into the Sunder to begin with, but that's kind of what you get with a Sunder. You get a little bit of damage on it and then you make them take more damage after, which is just pretty damn good all in all. So that pretty much sums up what I've got for this theory crafting here. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought about this, and if there's any sort of particular things that you guys might want to see, whether meta dependent or even just something silly and fun to do. Let me know and I will see what I can come up with later on in more videos. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, my name has been Supersonic Blur. Remember to like, comment, subscribe and favorite for more, and to share this stuff so people know that it exists. You guys have been a fantastic audience and I shall see you all next time.